Well, I was just pondering, a lot of times getting to what the issues are is not a quick process just all by itself, to trying to get to what is wrong and what is the evidence to support that wrongdoing. So all of the things that Ms. Smith mentioned as far as, are we doing these and the questions that you should be asking, we're doing all of those things. And when we receive information, and unfortunately, a lot of times it's through a headline, that there's a problem with an institution, we immediately open an investigation if we're not already doing that, and try to get to the weeds. And of course, what's being mentioned in the paper is often the easiest place to start, but a lot of times there's other things that are going on there as well. So then we're looking for specific violations of our law and how to apply that.
In many cases, as I've seen, and in other areas, in fact, I've got legislation related to tour buses and highway patrol inspections, and where they would come and they would, normally inspect in a certain time frame, once every 13 months. And now what we're looking at is when those problem operators show up a couple of times and there are some issues, they go more frequently and they look a little more carefully and they spend more time there. But the other good operators, good actors, you don't spend the time or the attention on because you don't need to, because they're working. Is that the type of performance metric that you may be looking at in the future, or trying to see that, if there are problems, there are a lot of complaints, there are issues that are being raised, that you then focus your attention there?
We do believe that the legislature gave us that capacity in 1247, so we can utilize that.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I was going to make the comment that it seems like to me that by the time it's in the headline, it's late, students have been harmed by the time it's in the headlines. And so I think Ms. Smith, right, mentioned, visits. Unannounced visits, and does that happen?
Yes.
Yes.
And do we glean information, helpful information in those kind of
Absolutely.
visits?
Absolutely.
So I think that's what we're talking about, maybe more of those.
Very good. Senator Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Smith talked about EDMC and gave some very troubling information about how they're doing. Do you keep a watch list, first of all, and if so, are they on it?
I can't really speak to individual, if we have investigations going on for individual institutions.
So if you know a school is in trouble and about to fail on its students, you can't reveal that to the students?
No, I just can't reveal it to you.
But you can reveal it to the students?
We can't, we would do that through an action.
Correct. What happens is, notwithstanding an investigation, whether or not that institution is in investigation, and unfortunately, we're not privy to share the specifics if a school is in investigation or not. If a school is imminently about to close, as was in the case of Marinella or Corinthian, the protections that the Bureau provides to the students is notwithstanding an investigation. We will have staff there. We will be providing them information on the STRIF. We will be providing them information on their rights, working with legal aid, leveraging their outreach capabilities, et cetera. So investigation is a separate track. The protection of the students and making sure that they're whole that's notwithstanding the investigation.
So at some point in an investigation, do you feel you have enough information to let students know that there might be a problem?
Actually, during the course of investigation, if we get to that point, we take an emergency action against the institution and ask them to cease enrolling new students.
That's happened.
And did that happen with Corinthian or Marinello prior to their closure? Are there any schools right now that are on that status?
No. We have to have, the way an emergency decision works is we have to have enough evidence available to us when we file an emergency action to be able to take an adverse action or to take an action against the institution's approval within 10 days. We need to get that filed with the Attorney General.
It sounds like bad schools are much more protected than good students, and that's troubling to me. You may need some legislation to allow you to reveal when a school is on a watch list. My feeling is there should be a watch list, which students should know when a school is more likely than not to be violating certain standards that you think might put students in jeopardy. And if you feel you need legislation to allow you to go forward, and Ms. Smith, if you have ideas about that, I, for one, and my guess is other members up here would be interested in pursuing that with you.
Chair?
You know, I remember when I introduced the Corinthian legislation and the hearing that we had at that time and when I presented the bill, and it's been a while. And at that time, I said, as I presented the bill, that the task at hand was to help those students who had been, out money, who had been harmed, but that we would at a later date get back and discuss how we would protect future students. And I don't hear, really, and following up with Senator Block, I don't hear that we have that in place yet, that I would be comfortable to feel that we are protecting students in the future from the same kind of things reoccurring. And I would agree with Senator Block that we need to look to see, and this is the time now to look, what are those things? What are the measures that the legislature can take so that we can protect from the same things from reoccurring?
Thank you, Assemblymember Chavez.
Yes, I think everybody wants to make sure that students are taken care of, mainly because, the workforce, we know that the ability to do well in our society often depends on education. Are you familiar with Decker College and the article in the Wall Street Journal today? Did you read that one?
No, I did not.
Well, it's in the Wall Street Journal today. You can read about it. But basically, it talks about how Decker College has to do, in this case, Kansas City, your three-tier system you're talking about, the federal, the state. Well, anyway, they went after Decker College, and as it turned out, Decker College went bankrupt, according to the article, and it found out that it was all falsified. And so the people who were hurt were the students and the Decker College, because the claim was they were not accredited, and they were. So we need to go back to the beginning in the sense that, why are these institutions there anyway? I've been talking for some time, for the 3 years I've been on the higher ed committee, that the current model that we have really doesn't meet all the needs of our economy. And so people are trying to position themselves at best to go forward. So we need to be balanced and fair as we do this to, A, protect the student, but also to make sure that we have entrepreneurs and new technologies that are coming together to ensure students and people can re-educate themselves for a new occupation. Because we know that in the world economy, often people at age 35 or 40 are going to be retrained for a job, and where do they go to do that? Not many people who are at that age, especially if they have children, can go to UC Santa Barbara and take 2 years off to go to college to get a new degree, because they got to raise their families, take care of them. So they're doing them online or whatever they can do to get those skills. So where I would appreciate being a part of any discussion to protect the students, I think we need to be very balanced in this. As I've often talked to the charter school associations, I said they should be the greatest policers of people in their institutions so they don't abuse people, because they get a bad reputation. I would say the same in these industries. I noticed earlier in the beginning of your testimony, you talked about 5 or 6 different organizations you're working with to ensure cosmetology, I assume, all the different skills that you're doing that. And I think that's great. But we just need to just be balanced on it. So if you haven't read the article, it's in the Wall Street Journal today. It's Decker College, and you can see what happens when the government oversteps their position, because we don't want to be there either. We need to be balanced and fair.
Thank you for those comments. See no further questions. Thank you very much. Again, appreciate you coming back up. So now this is an opportunity for anyone here who would like to speak to the committee and groups, organizations, individuals that have comments. Please come up.
Over here.
No, you can grab a seat here. That's fine. I'd say make yourself comfortable, but it's not easy in this room.
I've got some things. You wanted some background material on our experiences with accreditation and things like that, so I've got some to pass out. Oh, thanks.
That's right. The sergeant will take it behind you. Thank you.
My name's Steve Arthur. I'm president of Ryokan College. It's a nonprofit. We've been around since 1978, and my plea is for an exemption. We serve a certain niche of students big schools don't do. Average age is 44. Our tuition is 1/3 the cost of what regional accredited. All we do is psychology. And it's really a certain niche that if we weren't around, these students would not get served. And we've got a good reputation, and it takes life experience to understand psychology. So when you have an older student, they run into things where they're going, oh, yeah, I am familiar with that issue now that I didn't know it had a name to it. And the other thing that we offer that gets us in the way of a lot of accreditation is practicing clinicians as teachers. And because it's a vocational degree. And all our students go on to get licensed either as marriage family therapists or as licensed psychologists. And we've produced more than any school in the UC system. We rank number 11th out of 300 schools for the number of graduates who become licensed psychologists. So if we became accredited, our tuition would go up. These people can't afford a big tuition. Doctorates at regionally accredited schools now are $100,000 to $120,000. And so it's really a question, do you want to be a psychologist for a lot of these students, or do you want to one day own a home? And we would like to be exempt. The third page on what I passed out pretty much describes what we want and why we should be protected.
Thank you.
My name is Cristina Versari. I'm the president of the San Diego University for Integrative Studies. We have been a state-approved university since 1999. We are also the custodian of records for 5 BPP closed schools for 16 years. We have 350 students in our degree and non-degree programs. We employ over 100 faculty and staff. We are one of the schools that are going to be impacted by the new accreditation law and the BPP emergency regulation. Our programs range from certificate programs, which are non-degree programs, and to PhD programs. In our situation, there are no accrediting agencies licensed by the Department of Education to accredit a school that offer those degrees. So in order to meet the requirements of the new law, we're going to be required to close all of our PhD programs. So I'm here to request that part of the BPP reapproval, that the emergency regulations be amended to grandfather in the PhD programs and allow more time to apply and receive accreditation. We first applied for accreditation in 2004, and because there are no agencies licensed to provide that kind of accreditation, we haven't been able to get the accreditation. So we're willing to do all the work required, but we do need more time, and we would request that our PhD programs be grandfathered in. We are internationally known for our sports psychology program. The founders of the field are on our faculty. We are the only sports psychology program in the United States out of the psychology department. So we provide excellent service. All of our graduates are very successful professionals. We are approved by the California Board of Psychology and Board of Behavioral Science, Veteran Affairs. So there's many other agencies that we have been approved by, and we never had any concerns or any problems. So we believe it's unfair to have to close those programs just because there are no agencies licensed to approve our programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Jones, representing the Professional Beauty Federation of California. We represent every sector of the industry, which includes beauty schools and salons. And we are here in support of the State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology's request to have sole oversight of beauty colleges. I'd call out a 2014 State Auditor General report that recommended farming out as much of the responsibilities of BPPE to other DCA agencies, which we think that is consistent with our request as an industry. There's not a beauty school student alive that knows the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education, but every beauty school student knows the State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. State Board is in our schools every year, making sure their equipment and facilities are aligned with industry standards. The State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology approves the curriculum and textbooks that are used in every one of our schools. And then, of course, the State Board provides the licensing exam, which that is the reason why those students are there at school to begin with. And yet the State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology doesn't receive one red nickel from our schools. So they do all of that oversight for essentially free. Whereas some of our small mom and pop beauty schools are paying $25,000 a year to BPPE for the state license because of the way the 3/4 of 1% of their gross income schedule, you top out at that number really quickly. You could have 125 students and you're paying 25 grand a year to BPPE. That's a really high price for doing business. I don't think the State Board would charge that much and do a much better job making sure that students that are potentially harmed or defrauded will be protected. So for those reasons and many others that I don't have time to go into today, we would ask that you consider transferring oversight of beauty colleges to the State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, which is in the same department as the BPP.
Very good, thank you.
Hi, my name is Juan Inez. I'm the Executive Director of the Association for Private Post-Secondary Education in California. I represent 13 degree-granting approved schools here in the state. It struck me today that the kind of schools that I work with are, for lack of a better way of putting it, mom-and-pop universities that give degrees. Someone had a vision, someone had a dream and is making it work and has been offering this education for quite a period of time. I, too, am very concerned about the accreditation requirement. Before I say a couple things about that, I would like to say that we're thankful to the Bureau for reaching out to schools in the last year plus to let them explain how they do business and to have us explain some of the things that we think could help them improve the way they do business. But two recommendations. We would like to ask that the Bureau routinely provide a way or a window to give schools a response to petitions that are made or are submitted. Right now, we can turn in a petition or a form, and we don't have any idea when it's going to come back. If we could put that in, some kind of requirement, that would be huge. The second thing is that there's all kinds of reporting requirements that our schools are asked to do. Those requirements are killing our applications and our inquiries. We would appreciate it if the Bureau could continue to use its disclosure study, et cetera, to take a look at the way our schools are asked to report so that we can get the information that our students need, but at the same time not kill enrollments. By way of accreditation, I'll keep it very short. I submitted something in writing. The bottom line is this. We would hope that we can get the legislature to approve accreditation to 15 years for new schools, because that's how long it takes for a new school to get up and running, curriculum in place, faculty in place. We would appreciate it if the legislature could extend for existing schools accreditation from 5 years to 10 years. And we would appreciate it if the legislature would consider grandfathering good citizen schools that have had no history of being reproached by the Bureau, so that they can continue offering the services that they do without being burdened with trying to pay for and do accrediting that is basically out of the reach, and as was said before, beyond the niche that any accrediting agency would put them in. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. My name is Debbie Cochran. I'm with the Institute for College Access and Success. And I just wanted to take a moment to speak about some of the tens of thousands of students that are currently struggling with student loans that they're unable to repay and that have been harmed by closed institutions. Last year, Mr. Medina had a bill, AB 573, that would have helped those students by providing legal services funding so that students who are harmed and entitled to financial relief under federal law could have actually acquired that relief. The bill had unanimous support of the legislature. At the hearing around the Corinthian closure last year, Mr. Block described the closure of Corinthian as disaster and the bill as disaster relief for California's families. Yet the bill was vetoed despite the unanimous support, based in part due to the fact that the U.S. Department of Education had been taking some unprecedented steps towards helping students get relief. So 2 updates from last week. One was that first, the California Superior Court found that due to the unlawful and predatory practices of Corinthian colleges within California, every student that had been enrolled in a California campus of Corinthian colleges since 2010 deserves restitution. They all deserve financial relief. Secondarily, on Friday, the U.S. Department of Education put out their latest report showing how many students are actually getting relief. The best possible scenario is at HEALD, because that's where we see unprecedented efforts of the U.S. Department of Education. There's been an expedited process, a streamlined process for students who attended HEALD campuses for coming up on a year right now. And in the best case scenario, best interpretation of the numbers, 16% of HEALD students have gotten relief. So all of the students were deserving of relief and 16% of them have gotten it. So again, that's by far the best case scenario, 84% not getting relief. So we very much appreciate Mr. Medina's willingness to work on this issue, and we continue to work with his author's office on AB 2581, and would also encourage these committees to consider whether something like that could also be baked into the reauthorization language to help students that were harmed by Corinthian, but also we now know, closure of Maranello and other schools, that this is not an isolated incident, and we need to help these students and make sure they can actually access the relief that federal law and state law entitles them to.
Very good, thank you, Ms. Cochran. And we would go to Mr. Howard, but since he was in the back part of the line, we will go to the front of the.
To come up for some reason.
Really, I know, but I just want to. Would you like to let Mr. Howard speak, or all right, Mr. Howard?
Stereotype of a pushy lobbyist.
I was going to, yes, that's my point exactly.
Thank you very much.
What do you really think, Chair?
Mr. Chairs and members, Ed Howard on behalf of the Center for Public Interest Law, the Children's Advocacy Institute, and the Veterans Legal Clinic, all at the University of San Diego School of Law. Before I begin, I would be remiss if I didn't applaud your staff for a really, truly excellent and thorough background paper. I was going through the staff recommendations, and while we might quibble with the edges of one or the other, I think we would endorse all of your staff's recommendations, if not by letter, but certainly in spirit. I did want to take a quick moment to contextualize the task before this Bureau and, by extension, before this legislature. For 3 reasons, the Bureau's regulatory charge is certainly unique in the entirety of the Department of Consumer Affairs and nearly unique up and down the latitude and longitude of California's state government. The first reason is because of the size of the businesses, of the corporations, at least some of them, that fall under the regulatory jurisdiction of the Bureau. There are very few government agencies that are tasked with regulating corporations with market caps in the hundreds of millions, nearly billions of dollars. And they are the Public Utilities Commission, the Department of Managed Care, somewhat the ARB, and the Department of Insurance, and this Bureau. So certainly within up and down state government, but peculiarly within the Department of Consumer Affairs, there is no comparable agent, board, or bureau within the department that is tasked with such an enormous and challenging job. That's the first reason why what they're doing is unique. The second is this is simply, now the data is really overwhelming, one of the most troubled private sectors in recent history in America. And the troubles are significantly visited here in California. We, of course, know the problems with the Corinthian colleges, but EDMC has been mentioned during the hearing. EDMC in 2015 entered into a settlement agreement with the Federal Department of Education and the California Attorney General for $99.5 million, in part to get rid of a complaint alleging job placement inflation. EDMC has 13, I believe, California campuses. We talked about Westwood briefly. A majority of its students are here in California. We've talked about Maranello, a beauty school with some very significant problems. 39 of the 56 Maranello beauty academies that closed after the federal government found serious, quote-unquote, violations of law, 39 of them are here in California. So this is not only a job that is unique within the Department of Consumer Affairs, it is a task that is regulating not only a lot of big businesses, but a very, very troubled sector with a very large percentage of their customers slash students here in California. And third, again, a little bit different than at least the rest of Department of Consumer Affairs land, the people who are enticed to enroll in both the good and the troubled schools are disproportionately of color. They are disproportionately poor. They included a disproportionate number of foster kids and of veterans. If one were to look at the medical board, for example, that's a fairly large cross-section of Californians. But the folk that are the most at risk here are the ones that if something goes south, they're the most likely to end up on public assistance. They're the ones who, when they can't get their student loans discharged in bankruptcy, end up having to deal with other government safety net programs. So it's very different than anything else that the Department of Consumer Affairs confronts. The good news is that we at the center are busy going through and looking at all of the state laws of the 50 states. It looks like, because of the great work of this legislature over the last few years, it very well may be that California has the best laws on the books of any state. Now, that is peculiarly true, and I have some very good news on that score, especially for Senator Block. That's certainly true with disclosure. Senator Block's AB 2296 is really a watershed bill nationally. I do need personally, on behalf of my folk, to thank the director and the chief, because the last iteration of those regulations to come out for public comment powerfully, and I think, although we didn't get everything we wanted, I think creatively and ingeniously addressed our concerns. And I think if the regulations stay as they are, it will certainly be the best disclosure law in the country. Now, that doesn't mean there's not improvement. Here in this hearing, maybe one of the better additions to that law, Senator Block, may be disclosure if you're on a federal government watch list, for example. But it does mean, and the reason I talked about the challenge, it does mean that our ask of the committees represented here and of the legislature is not really to emphasize new laws, but given the unique practical challenge that this Bureau confronts, what we really need is your continued vigorous oversight. Exactly what you're doing here today, because what I think you've heard from Ms. Smith and even from the schools is that the major challenges confronting the Bureau now are operational. It's taking the good words that this legislature has enacted and making sure that it's enacted well. And government programs don't have market competitors to keep them on mission and on track. All they have really is you. So with that, I thank the chairs and the committee so much for your interest and pray very much for your continued interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.